New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit for the 20th of February. Gosh, it feels like it was just New Year's. And we're unofficially calling today episode number 1222 of So You Want to Be a Dictator? Welcome to the program. We've got all kinds of interesting things happening in the news this week, and we're going to talk about those. And you're welcome to join the conversation as well. Feel free to chat along, chime along, share your comments in the comment box of whatever platform you're watching here today. So in a no surprise to many type of move yesterday, wannabe dictator Donald Trump decided to hang a giant banner of himself looking ominous and evil over top of the Department of Justice. Internet memes immediately started changing the lettering to some things we're not supposed to say on air to try to downplay it. But I mean, here we are. The comparisons are not far off from other great dictators of the world who hang their big ass huge picture ominously over the people on the Ministry of Justice, the Department of War. I mean, what's next? We're going to have, his flag flying off the top of the White House.
It's amazing to me that the ability is not being picked up by, it appears, no one, relatively speaking. And when we look at the things promoting himself and downplaying everybody else, and not only downplaying but attacking everybody else that's not in his agreement, is not government. It is dictatorship, and we should be paying very close attention to that type of activity, because there are consequences that go beyond the immediacy of what's happening, and 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, it will come back to bite us if we can't get a handle on it.
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly enough, I saw a meme that is getting Ice-T in some trouble. So rapper turned actor turned now social activist Ice-T released a statement in a meme this week that said, I know people are comparing Donald Trump to Satan, but come on. I know he's evil, but he's not as evil as Donald Trump. And as you would expect, there's been some pushback against that statement.
This is part of the challenge too. And I mean, we have right to free speech and everything, and I get that. But to have people who are not, and I'm not saying that Ice-T or any other actors or entertainers are not aware of what's going on and haven't done a deep dive. But when we get everybody and their mother becoming news reporters, and they're being upheld by their entertainer status, it becomes very difficult to get real news out. Because people are going to, in this popular culture, people are going to flock to the statements and the activities and the actions, even the clothing that these individuals bring forth. And, you know, are you selling a product? Are you selling yourself? Are you providing real information? Has to be considered, which, goes back to what we always say. Take all of it, even from the so-called serious news people, with a grain of salt, and use that as an impetus to go do your own research. Because we're in a place where we're in a post-truth world. It's hard to agree with any of it.
Yep. Well, I think, in many ways, I think we've gotten to a point where a lot of people have decided to fight fire with fire. Donald Trump makes outlandish statements on Truth Social, in the news, everywhere. I mean, he's throwing everything he can to move the spotlight off of the Epstein files. And I think a lot of celebrities are saying, okay, come on after me then too. And I'm going to throw myself in the way of all of this. Woody Harrelson put out a statement recently that said, we have a leader that is emboldening. I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not remembering it exactly. That is emboldening fascists and others to speak their mind. And I really wish we could get rid of the son of a bitch. We do have Senator Ed Markey. We have Senator Ed Markey pushing a 25th Amendment movement in the Senate to remove Trump as unable to serve. And we have Trump on an airplane saying that he's going to award himself the Medal of Honor, that he deserves a medal of, now, his mouthpiece in the press room is going to say it was all just a joke, and don't you people understand humor? And she's going to stand up there with her little gold cross and pretend that she's some voice of God, when all she's doing is parroting a fascist, they're all trying to cover for this guy, and he thinks he deserves the Medal of Honor. I mean, how delusional do you need to be? You didn't win you didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize, so you deserve the Medal of Honor? You draft dodging hypocrite. But it's all, and we're going to talk about Iran here today. We've got that story. We've got him releasing the X files instead of the Epstein files. I think he got lost in the alphabet. I can't give the Epstein files. Let's just give the X files. They'll be okay. And he's doing it undercover, saying he's trying to save Obama's ass because Obama released classified information. I watched the interview. Obama very clearly says, he goes, I don't know, but I think there are. He goes, I've never seen one. I'm not sure how that's classified, but it feels like we're at the stage of lunacy in all of this, and celebrities are emboldened to just say, I'm going to say whatever I want to say because that's what our leader does.
Well, and just to be clear, we've always had entertainers who got involved, especially during the civil rights movement, we had all kind of entertainers getting involved in a political statement and political wrangling, if you will, to bring about justice, to bring about some equity and some equal treatment. But so how do we continue to have, because we want anyone who has an opinion to speak up, but how do we continue to get those kinds of people to really take a stand? I mean, that comes to mind for me is Harry Belafonte and Ossie Davis and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, even Frank Sinatra took a couple of stands. So it's important that we remember, I believe anyway, that especially now that the globe is like a stone throws away from anything, right? And the more we continue to isolate, the more we continue to create false narratives about what's really going on, we get lost. And so part of the plan is, I believe, to keep the populace marred in all kind of entertainment things, the Bad Bunny show, this, that, or the other. And while you get fired up about something as minuscule as a concert, where we have two armadas, right? Because each one of those carriers, aircraft carriers that's over there in the Mediterranean in Iran, there is an armada. It's not just those two ships. It's those two ships plus all of the support ships, probably at least 50 aircraft on each one of those carriers. I mean, there's a big buildup of military power and humans in harm's way potentially. We have to begin again. My wholeness. We have to look at this stuff in wholeness. Yes, we need entertainment. Yes, we need this, that, and the other. But we have to look at it in context. And to do that, I need content, right? And it can't be fabricated.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. You said it earlier, right? We've entered a post-truth world. We've talked about this on this show for a few years now, that it's become increasingly more and more difficult to know what is truth. But we do know now that when America bombed that Iranian mountain full of nuclear capabilities, that we didn't do the job we said we did. Because if we did, we wouldn't be sending two armadas to Iran, and we are dangerously close to a war with Iran. And it's interesting. I did see a post this week as well that shares a whole bunch of tweets that Donald himself made back when he was on Twitter, when Twitter was Twitter. Went a whole bunch of tweets that he made saying, watch, Obama's going to start a war with Iran. I watch. And his whole justification was that Obama was going to start a war with Iran because he was a failed president. And now here is Trump trying to start a war with Iran. Again, I believe all of this is to cover up his involvement with Epstein and his involvement with a global pedophile and sex trafficking ring, but we'll get to that. Prince Andrew is feeling the heat on that today. This week, he was really might as well go there now. Prince Andrew was arrested yesterday in England on charges. I'm not exactly sure of how they worded all the charges, but it's directly involved with the release of the Epstein files and his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and his sexual abuse of young women and or children. We don't know exactly. We do know that most of the women he's been accused of were, quote, of age at the time of the abuse. However, speculation is still there that Andrew had relations with underage girls, and the light is being shown we're peeling back the layers of some really nasty, ugly kind of stuff that is really, truthfully, I think, really hard for people to grasp. And so we're being given alien revelations, and we're being given wars to look at, and we're being given censorship at the level of the FCC, and we're being given all these things to distract from perhaps some of the bigger picture of what's really happening. And it's tough to keep track of it all, really.
Yeah. You need a dashboard, right? You need a dashboard to keep track of all of this. And you know, the whole Epstein thing, I mean, now that things are coming out, there's all of this extra activity, I'll put it that way, of people drinking kids' blood and all kinds of weirdness, which is scary. There was this whole thing about the Democrats were doing all these things, and but when you look at stuff, it's like, man, some of that is being pointed toward them as well. So it's like, how do we get our head around this? I mean, it's really challenging and disturbing to get your head around this kind of stuff. And we know that the people that have been named are powerful, financially stable people who can block and divert things for a very long time. So it'll be interesting to see how much continues to come out and what happens as a result of it coming out.
And the fallout is massive. I don't know if you've heard about this one. The CEO, the owner of Shutterfly, which also happens to own Life Touch Photos, I think is the name, which is a national school photo company, has been implicated. And it's not just a name drop in the files. It's full on, this guy ain't a good guy. So there's going to be a whole year or more maybe, of kids not getting their photos taken for school pictures, and rightfully so. I mean, kind of creepy. They named the company Life Touch, and you're talking about children, and but parents across the country are holding their kids out of picture day, keeping their kids home from picture day at school, to push back and boycott this company. And when the government says that if you prosecuted all the men in the Epstein files, the whole system would collapse, I think the American public's ready for the collapse. And I think there are good people that will fill the void, and good companies that don't look at humans as chattel, that don't look at children as sexual objects, that don't look at women as something to be trafficked, as an object to be traded or bought and sold, that there are good people ready to fill the void. So I am sort of at that point of, let the system burn. It might be hard, but I think the leaving, they're now being called the Epstein class, right? That's a new term that's surfaced. The Epstein class, the class of people that are feel they are so far above the law that's why they're in the Epstein files. That's why they're being revealed at this point, because they felt they were so far above it all. And I think we need to root that level of corruption out all the way to the ground. It's interesting times ahead.
Yeah. I think, one of the things I think that everyone needs to consider new geopolitical global phenomenon, if you will, is everyone needs to really get in touch with, as the saying goes, what is theirs to do, i.e., really tap into yourself and find out where you fit into the wholeness of all things. And then do that extremely well. If that's making sandwiches for people who go out and do what they do, then do that. If your thing is to go out and be on the front line, then go do that. But I think we we have to find our lane, as they say, because there's, we live in a multi-lane highway now, right? And you can get lost if you're not in the right, if you're in lane 5 and you need to be turning off the exit on lane 1, you can't get over, and now you're stuck. uh and using it as a metaphor, we really have to be clear of our destination.
Yes. Um, unless you're driving in the United States, in which case, just stop anywhere you want and wait until you can get over. I see far too many videos like that. People that just like, oh, I'm just going to go from over here to over there and cut everybody off. So, but I agree with you. We've lost, in many senses, it feels like we've lost any sense of decorum towards each other. So many, and I don't want to say everybody, and I don't want to make this about, broad generalizing statements, but there are far too many folks out there that have lost touch with any sense of ethics, of any sense of compassion for each other, no, I guess we're in a time of reckoning, and a lot of people are going to get to pay the piper for bad behaviors.
Yeah, and I want to make sure we don't go without acknowledging the pattern of our heroes, whether you like them or not. Reverend Jesse Jackson, who passed this week. Yep. What we can definitely say, he was a voice for the people, and that he did not back down against the tyranny and the craziness and all of those things that continue to face us today. And we continue to need someone like Brother Jesse to go out and fight the power. One of the biggest things I think he did is Operation, which was, a program for the sustaining of humanity, right? We need that now. The Push Coalition and that Rainbow Coalition was about bringing everybody together to sustain humanity, to work together. Rainbow Coalition, and we can't forget that. We can't allow the powers that be have taken that kind of idea away from us.
Yeah, exactly. Folks, Reverend Elzia and myself and Dr. Raymond Anderson, we had a more in-depth discussion around Reverend Jesse Jackson and his contribution to American culture on our other program, New Thought Today, this past Tuesday. It's on our YouTube channel and in the playlist for New Thought Today, and you can look that up. And I encourage you to go take a look at that, because we did have a bit more time to delve into his legacy, and you shared with us, while not the same class, you and he share a connection through your national fraternity brothers, and you had a chance to work with him and for him on his first presidential campaign. which I always love when people stand up and say, I get it. I might be the longest shot there is, but I'm going to go for it to be able to make a statement. And as you just said, whether you like him or not, Jesse Jackson did amazing work throughout his lifetime for the people of this country. And I so wish that I had a flagpole on my house, on my property, so that I was half tempted to go buy one and stick it in the ground just so I could fly the flag at half mast, because I think it is a national atrocity that we lowered the flags to half mast for a guy like Charlie Kirk, but we don't lower the flags. But there hasn't been any mention out of our White House. There hasn't been any mention of his death from the powers that be right now, and that our flag is still flying at full staff when we've lost an American hero. And I would encourage anyone, if you have control of of a flag on your property, get that thing lowered to half mast for a little while, and let's let the world know that we're not going to forget the contribution that Reverend Jesse Jackson made to the planet, to our culture. It's huge and it's important. So, and it reminded me, Z, sometimes the greatest voices do come from clergy. And we have to, and I think clergy may just be the saving grace and lead the charge. When the evangelicals have to face the full horror of Donald's involvement with Epstein and what those files truly reveal, I'm praying, trusting that it will be the evangelical clergy that will lead the charge to have him removed from culture. I don't want to get, I don't want to invoke violence. I don't want to tell anybody go crucify the man.
Yeah.
But if anybody's got a right to it, would probably be the evangelicals.
Yeah, because he's co-opted that whole organization, and as you say that, I'm reminded of a book that who had this book that says you'll see it when you believe it. And when we talk about faith, that whole idea, that whole statement is based on a vision. It's based not only just a vision. Let me back that up. It's based on an understanding of universal laws and a vision of how they work together to create this environment that works for all, right? But you have to believe that. You have to believe in these principles. You have to believe where you're good, and it begins to create its own environment, just like certain weather anomalies create their own environment. Tornadoes and hurricanes, they create their own atmosphere, their own environment. And we have the ability to do that when we step into this idea of believing on a vision that is grounded in principles and faith to eradicate a whole lot of this stuff. But we have to get the critical mass. We have to get enough people believing that it's possible and then working in that way towards a vision.
Yep, exactly. And that brings us to what is rapidly going to become a new segment here on this program. What senators to call this week? I want to highlight something that our friend Linda Plasters is in the comments saying, I'm concerned that T will invoke martial law, then it'll be MAGA-controlled military against the citizens. I want to challenge the belief that the military is currently controlled by the MAGA movement. I don't believe that is true. I do believe there are still plenty of really good people in the military that would stand up against an illegal order, that would not follow an illegal order. And the FBI and the Justice Department did fail to convict the senators that put out a video reminding the military of that oath. And I think that if Donald actually had the sway within the military to declare martial law, I think he would have done it already. So I don't think it's really there. I don't think he has that much control. Maybe I'm just being a little affirmative on this, and but I'm praying and trusting that I'm getting this one right here, and that he doesn't really have that much sway within the military. However, we do know that they are trying desperately to disrupt our elections and the upcoming midterm elections. So our real focus, I believe, right now wants to be in maintaining and protecting our elections. If you're in a state that allows mail-in balloting, create a plan to take that ballot and hand it in. Take that ballot. If you're in a state that requires in-person voting, know the laws. If you're turned away from a polling station, ask for a provisional ballot and make sure you file a provisional ballot. And let's start calling our senators. In a real twist of weirdness this week, Susan Markey out of Maine has indicated she will vote for the SAVE Act, which would give the Republicans the majority they need. However, closely on the heels of that, Mitch McConnell came out and said he'll not vote for the SAVE Act, which now means they don't have a majority. So call Susan Markey and express your displeasure with her choice. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's time to call Mitch McConnell and give him an attaboy and encourage Mitch to start doing the better work and and stand up to this guy. And when you lose Mitch McConnell, I thought losing Marjorie Taylor Greene would be a death knell for Trump. But when you're losing Mitch McConnell's support, you got to know that this is a bad bill. And that's what some are starting to call this SAVE Act, is the big bad bill, because it hurts the American process. It hurts the democratic process. It hurts our ability to have free and fair elections. And right now, I'm more concerned about free and fair elections than I am about Trump declaring martial law, because I don't think he'll do it, because I think he knows he doesn't have it. He's going to continue to obfuscate. He's going to continue to say, hey, look over here. He's going to continue to belittle journalists. He's going to continue to ostracize gays and blacks and anyone that's not a white Christian. But I think we're about to start to see some white Christians stand up too against the man.
And I think the government, the Justice Department, there's still some stand strong members of that community, if you will, because just the other day, on President's Day, it was actually that the courts did not allow Trump's dismantling of a display in Philadelphia of George Washington's slaves, the founder, if we say, of the country. He cannot take it down. They have to keep that up, because we need history to remind us what is possible if we allow these kinds of ideas, this kind of separation, denigration, belittling, all these things to reduce people to less than human. The founding father, who we revere, if you will, had slaves, and it's up there to show that this is what happens when you get out of sync. And there's even stories about the first president because they had this law in Philadelphia, if you were there for a certain amount of time, you would be declared free. And Washington would send his slaves away down south to break that chain of time, so that there's hope there. There's actual more than hope there, but we have to tap into it.
Yep. Exactly. I did see video of that. And our dear friend and semi-regular contributor here on this program, Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni, was telling me that in Philadelphia, people have been taking turns going down to Independence Mall and standing there with signs that replicate the displays that were taken down. So they had been removed. The Supreme Court ruled they had to be put up, and I've watched video of them being reinstalled, of those signs and those interpretive signs being reinstalled to keep the history alive. I've heard this said a few times now in different ways. Go to your local used bookstore and buy history books. Buy those old history textbooks that are sitting on the bottom shelf holding up the used bookstore. Go buy those books and wrap them up and preserve them in your basement or your attic, and let's buy up the history so that it can't be erased. And that is a win for democracy this week. There's there are small indicators. There's small wins that are happening. I want to talk about the Colbert experience too, real quick, before we run out of time. So this week, the FCC kind of warned the television show The View, which is on CBS. The FCC sent a warning that they had featured James Tallarico and that they did not follow the fairness doctrine, I guess it's called. Now, for those that don't know, there's still this old rule on the books.
Equal time.
I don't see why CBS has to follow it when Fox doesn't. But if you give one politician in a race time, you got to give their opposition equal time. And the FCC decided to use this against CBS, and CBS bowed down and kissed the boot of Donald Trump in this regard, and warned The View that they were in jeopardy, yada yada yada. So Stephen Colbert decides to have James Tallarico, who is running for Senate in Texas. He is running against the current representative in Texas, Jasmine Crockett, for the Democratic nomination. The Senate seat, the Republican candidates have a lot of trouble. And as James Tallarico stated on his interview with James Colbert, he's pretty sure that they're scared to death that they're going to turn Texas blue and that Texas is going to lose a Senate seat to the Democrats. So whether it's Tallarico or whether it's Jasmine Crockett, go blue in Texas. But CBS bowed down to the king and said, okay, went to Colbert and said, you can't do this interview, and you can't tell anybody that we told you can't do this interview. Now, if you can't see how that sets you up to shoot yourself in the foot, they got some pretty stupid lawyers at CBS, because Colbert's already on short time. He knows that he's losing his job in just a couple of months. And so he went on air this week and said, no, here's what's going on, folks. They're trying to censor us. They're telling me I can't do this interview, and they're telling me I can't tell you that I can't do this interview. And he did a whole segment on why he's not supposed to talk about this. They did the interview anyway. It's on YouTube. It has received hundreds of thousands more views on YouTube than it would have if it had aired on CBS. And it's a very articulate interview with James Tallarico. I'm not going to make a suggestion of between him and Jasmine Crockett, because I really like what Jasmine Crockett's been doing in the House. And there are these wins that are happening. People are beginning to stand up in ways, and kind of back to what we were saying about Ice-T. I think a lot of celebrities have had more than enough that they're willing to say, damn the torpedoes, I'm going to say what I think, and I'm going to say what I think might move the needle, because you're going to come after my job anyway. And kudos to Stephen Colbert again and again and again for he's doing more for free speech than I think I've seen the government do for free speech in a long, long time.
Yeah. It shows the bravery that can be taken by an individual who's committed to an idea. And that idea just happens to be what our whole country is based on. So everybody should be willing and able to take that. But I think they're trying to take that platform away. And as you said, the alternative platform, YouTube, is already there. So let's see what happens.
Yep. You mentioned in our pre-show, Z, that part of what's happening here and bigger picture, this whole thing is starting to turn. And I saw an article recently about how in Belarus, Orban basically denigrated the media, convinced his cronies with a lot of money to buy up these media companies, and effectively made the free media, the people's media, a mouthpiece for the government. I do believe that's what we're seeing now, because these types of moves are driving real journalism and real media onto pay platforms, into cable, into other platforms where you're going to have to, in one way or another, pay to see this stuff. And our traditional NBC, ABC, CBS are going to become nothing but mouthpieces for the government. So I'm also praying that, George Orwell wasn't just 50 years early and that 1984 is really going to be 2034. I believe we can stop that march. I still believe we can be a force for good in the world. And I believe that good people with good people can stop this misuse of the law, that can stop this drifting of American culture into authoritarianism. They haven't won yet, and we're not going to let them.
Yeah. And I'm going to, as I'm sitting here now, I'm going to go and curate a list of media sources that I trust, that I think are fair, and that are on both sides, to get a daily view of areas that I'm interested in. Some of I like science, and I like archaeology and things. So because those things look at history, right? And you can't deny them. Like recently they just uncovered another tomb in Egypt that's 35,000 years old, or 3,500 rather years old, which is going to shed some light on the evolution of man and the evolution of society and government and all these things. But I'm going to find areas that I'm interested in. So when I talk on those subjects, you can believe that I know what I'm talking about, because I've done the deep dive and I have some level of expertise, for lack of a better word, on those topics. And that's what we have to begin to do. Find those things that you're passionate in and make it happen. Get the information and have the sources. So if anybody comes to me and says, oh, that's crap, well, maybe, but here are my sources. You can go check them yourself and then come back and let's talk.
Yeah. Yep. And call your senators, call your representatives. We want to see Reverend Jesse Jackson lying in state in the rotunda, not out on the steps. Let's overturn this. Mike Johnson is denying the family of Jesse Jackson to provide him with that honor, saying that it's now been reserved only for former presidents to lie in state in the rotunda. Bullshit. let's call our people, get on the phones, spend some time today calling senators and representatives, and let's let the American people's voice be heard. I know many of you watching this program have made it a spiritual practice to call and to call and to call and to call daily. And one of these days, Lauren Boebert's gonna call us back. Or she's going to send the Secret Service to my house. I'm not sure which, but one way or the other, I'm not letting up, and I encourage you not to let up either. Keep your foot on the gas, keep your eye on the prize, keep looking towards the vision.
Yeah, and real quick, I want to say Ramadan Mubarak to all our Muslim friends.
Yes.
Who this week started the fast of Ramadan, which is a time of introspection, making relationships, understanding our relationship to all there is. And so big shout out, if you will, to all the Muslims who are fasting for the month of Ramadan, and knowing that that is energy for those righteous Muslims who are looking to create a world that works for all, will generate some energy so that we can continue to rise above the fascism of all religion and move towards a place where humanity can live together as one.
Yep. Somebody, it is interesting. Ramadan and Lent fall together this year, and somebody in a conversation was like, "I don't do that Lent stuff. That's way too hard." I was like, "You think that's hard? Go talk to my brother about doing Ramadan. You think Lent is hard? Actually, that's a walk in the park. Give up chocolate for 40 days? How about no, that ain't tough." So yes, thanks for reminding us of that one, Z. I always look forward to the insights that you bring forward during Ramadan, because I know, how many years now have you been practicing?
I don't even want to. It's been more than 40. Let me just leave it at that.
Yep, exactly. So, all right, folks, that's about all that we've got time for today. We're going to get out of here, let you get back into your Friday morning. Please stay with us throughout the day today. Rev Skip is up at 11 with the High Vibe Hour. We've got the Joy Show at 1 and the Good News at 5, as well as Reverend Michael and the Fireside Chat at 6 p.m. Mountain Time here on New Thought Media Network. On behalf of everyone, we thank you. We love you. We look forward to seeing you again real soon. But until then, let us wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.